When a millionaire unexpectedly discovered his pregnant employee's secret, it changed everything. Ethan sat in his sleek office, the view of his bustling suburban town shimmering like a postcard. The walls vibrated with his employees' chatter and laughter, yet he felt an unsettling emptiness enfolding him. Success was supposed to be fulfilling, wasn't it? He clenched a pen in his hand, feeling the cool metal against his palm. Suddenly, the door creaked open. Sarah, his diligent project manager, peeked in, her face a mix of worry and fatigue, clutching her notepad like a lifeline. "Can we talk?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Before he could respond, the brave facade she wore cracked, and tears welled in her eyes. "I'm pregnant, Ethan." The words hung in the air, sharp, shocking, and heavy. Ethan blinked, his world shifting. Here was a young woman, not just a worker, but a person with struggles woven into her very being. As the news trickled out, the office buzzes morphed into whispers, then sharp-edged gossip. "It'll slow her down," someone said. "You think she's got what it takes?" echoed another. Ethan could feel a tight knot forming in his chest. Sarah was juggling her impending motherhood with the weight of caring for her ill grandmother. It took monumental strength. He realized he'd seen so many numbers and profits, but had been blind to the human stories around him. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tensions flared in the halls of his survival of the fittest office. Accusations flew like daggers. She asked, taking advantage. And why should we have to pick up her slack? Ethan felt the weight of his privilege pressing down. Agonizing questions crept in. How did he ignore the struggle of those around him? He was building wealth, but at what cost? What did the American dream mean if it left others behind? He found himself drawn to Sarah, her spirit igniting something inside him that had dimmed amidst spreadsheets and board meetings. They shared lunches, conversations that held the essence of their challenges, graying the lines of their class divide. Through her tales of resilience, Ethan felt reality dawning. Sarah embodied the very attributes he'd once tied to success: grit, determination, and an unwavering spirit. Then came a stroke of luck he never anticipated, a client proposal that could skyrocket his startup. The very moment he thought of endorsing Sarah for more responsibility, the report arrived. Flaggers flew around the office. The stakes were rising, and he found himself cornered. Would he defend her, extending a hand amid whispers of dissent? Or would he prioritize profits, risking Sarah's career and his own moral compass? Ethan felt the crushing enormity of the decision resting heavily on his shoulders. His heart raced, thoughts entangling like ivy around his mind. What would he choose? Would his next move redefine not just his company, but the essence of success itself? The clock ticked relentlessly, and as Ethan braced himself, he couldn't help but wonder, could this be the moment that changes everything? Ethan stood up abruptly, the chair groaning in protest as he pushed it away. The familiar noise of the office faded, the overwhelming chatter drowning out like a distant storm. He paced, endlessly contemplating his next step. Sarah's face flashed in his mind, the tilt of her chin, the weight of her confession. Suddenly he stopped. The report was still in his hand, the numbers dancing mockingly in front of him. The projection promised profits unlike anything his company had ever seen. But with those numbers came a flood of judgments about Sarah's worth. The voices of his employees echoed, filled with doubt and disdain. Who were they to define someone's value based on standard metrics of productivity? The walls felt like they were closing in on him. He thought again of Sarah, how she had been fiercely dedicated even through illness and impending motherhood. The fact that people could overlook her strength made him feel nauseated. He stirred, his gut clenching in raw frustration. It wasn't just about the office dynamic anymore, it was personal. He needed to create a culture that embraced vulnerability, that championed those who fought battles unseen. But how? He could feel the absence of conviction that had plagued him for too long. Should he confront the whispers? Should he risk it all to stand up for her? Before he could sink further into his thoughts, he found himself in front of Sarah's desk. She was staring blankly at her computer, lost in the storm of her own worries. She looked up at him, her expression a mix of hope and fear, like a timid deer caught in headlights. "Have you thought about it?" she asked hesitantly. Her voice trembled, and Ethan could see the tightness in her shoulders, the way she wrapped her arms around herself as if trying to shield her fears. He took a deep breath, mustering the courage he felt slip away every time he faced the reality of the situation. "I'm considering pushing for you to take on a more prominent role. You deserve it." Her eyes widened, disbelief flickering across her face. "Ethan, I don't want to put you in a difficult position. I don't want to make things worse." "It's not about that," he interjected, more forcefully than he intended. "You've proven yourself time and again. It's time I did the same for you." She blinked, processing his words as a faint smile broke the tension. "You really mean it?" "Yes," he said, his conviction hardening. "But I need to be sure you're comfortable with it. If you're willing to step up, I will stand in their corner for you, no matter what they say." A soft laugh escaped her, and tears welled up once more. "You have no idea what this means to me." Ethan felt warmth rise in his chest, a rare and powerful feeling. But just as quickly, doubt washed over him. What if it backfired? What would the board think? As he was lost in thought again, the office door swung open. Paul, the head of the finance department, walked in, his expression betraying nothing. Ethan braced for impact. "We need to talk about that proposal," Paul said, glancing between Ethan and Sarah. In that moment, the tension hung heavy in the air. Paul's gaze was sharp, calculating, as if he sensed a fragile alliance forming before him. Ethan felt every nerve firing. Would he back down now? Would this be the moment that defined his commitment to not just profits, but people? With everything at stake, he knew a line was about to be crossed, and there would be no turning back. What would he choose? Ethan felt a bead of sweat form on his brow as he stared at Paul. The man always knew how to command the room, but today, Ethan's heart thumped louder than usual, a drumroll to the tension that gathered like storm clouds. "What about it?" Ethan asked, forcing his voice to remain steady. Inside, everything screamed at him to defend Sarah. But the words hung between them, thick and uncertain. Paul sat down, smoothing his collar like a predator preparing to pounce. "I've noticed some discrepancies in budget allocations regarding team projects. Sarah's name keeps popping up. I need to understand her role better." Ethan's muscles tensed. He could see Paul's mind churning, calculating each move. This was no mere review. It was an opportunity for Paul to undermine Sarah. The thought made Ethan's insides turn. "She's integral to our success," Ethan declared, trying to catch Paul off guard. "She's been the backbone of the team, especially with the challenges we're facing." Paul smirked, unimpressed. "The numbers don't lie, Ethan. And from what I've seen, her current performance isn't exactly stellar." Sarah's hands trembled on the desk, a silent storm brewing behind her eyes. Ethan took a step closer, shielding her from the onslaught. "You don't understand her situation," he said, his voice low but firm. "She has dealt with more than most realize, and she does it all while being pregnant." Paul's demeanor changed. He cocked his head, studying Sarah like she was an equation yet to be solved. "Pregnant? You didn't mention that before." Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. "Because it's not anyone's business. What matters is how she navigates her responsibilities and supports the team while facing challenges that would crush a lesser person." He had crossed a line, but the conviction behind his words steeled his resolve. "Interesting perspective," Paul said, lacking sincerity. "But you know how the board is. They want results, not excuses." Ethan's heart sank and anger bubbled beneath the surface. This was more than a business decision, it was a matter of principle. Should he leave it alone and let the board judge Sarah's worth based solely on sales numbers? Or fight tooth and nail, In that moment, Sarah's voice broke through the static of Ethan's thoughts. If you need to rethink my role, I completely understand. I wouldn't let my personal life affect the company. Her words were soft, but Ethan heard the strength behind them. He looked at her, gratitude swelling in his chest. No, Sarah. You have every right to take on this role, he said firmly, knowing that now he had to defend her not just to Paul but to everyone who cast doubt on her abilities. The tension sharpened. Paul raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. Are you really willing to risk your credibility for this? Ethan felt the weight of the room pressing down on him. He couldn't think of a better way to define his leadership. I'm willing to risk it all, he replied, nodding toward Sarah. She deserves support just like everyone else in the company. For a moment, silence enveloped them, thick and heavy. Then Paul's cold smile returned as he leaned back, crossing his arms. You're going to want to have your facts in order if you push this. I'll give you a week before I bring my concerns to the board. Paul stood and left, the door snapping shut behind him. Ethan turned to Sarah, breathless. I'm sorry if she cut him off with a soft shake of her head. Thank you? You didn't have to do that. But doubt clouded his thoughts as he looked at her, a mix of gratitude and concern. What did this mean for them both? What would happen next? And deeper down, Ethan's heart raced with the implications of his choice. A wild connection had formed, and it seemed destined to unravel in ways he could hardly anticipate. In the echoing silence of the office, he felt a storm brewing not just outside in the world of business, but within his own heart. As the reality of what lay ahead pressed in, he wondered how deep the conflict would run. Would they emerge united, or would this battle shatter everything they were building together? Ethan's heart raced as he turned away from the door that Paul had just slammed shut. Silence cradled the office, heavy and palpable. Sarah's eyes were fixed on the desk, her fingers fidgeting with a pen. He could sense her anxiety like heat waves rising from asphalt on a summer day. Are you okay? He finally asked, his voice softer now. She looked up, her gaze steady but with a hint of uncertainty. I will be. It blindsided me, you know? I didn't expect my personal life to be on display like that. Ethan stepped closer, his instinct to comfort her kicking in. It's not right how he treated you. You deserve better. She smiled faintly, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I appreciate you standing up for me, Ethan. But what if it backfires? What if I really am not pulling my weight? Don't say that, he felt a surge of protectiveness. You have done amazing work. You're not just a number or a name on a spreadsheet. The tension in the air coiled tighter. He wanted to take away her doubt, but words could only reach so far. Everything she'd accomplished, all the endless late nights and early mornings, flashed before him in a whirlwind of color and motion. What if I fail? Sarah's voice barely rose above a whisper, and Ethan's stomach twisted at the vulnerability she was showing. You won't. We're in this together, he assured her, the conviction flowing through him like adrenaline. I'll help you however I can. We'll prepare for whatever Paul throws at us. I promise. As those words left his lips, he felt a familiarity tighten the space between them. They had been friends, colleagues, but now there was a deeper bond emerging, something raw and real. He watched the glimmer of hope flicker in Sarah's eyes, and for a moment, they shared a silent understanding. Then the moment shattered. A knock at the door broke the spell, and it opened to reveal Jenna, a fellow teammate. Her bright smile faltered as she read the room. Hey, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to check if we need to regroup on the project? Ethan exchanged a glance with Sarah. The atmosphere felt charged, and he could see the wheels turning in Jenna's mind. They needed to pivot, and fast. Yeah, let us gather everyone. We should address the budget and clear the air, Ethan replied, his voice steady. As Jenna nodded and left, Sarah took a deep breath, transforming her expression from uncertainty to determination. Right. No backing down. Ethan felt a warmth spread in his chest. This was the Sarah he admired, fierce and unwavering. Together, they would confront whoever questioned her ability, including the board. They moved to the conference room, where the rest of the team began to filter in. The tension was still there, a crackling anticipation underlining everything. As they settled into their seats, Ethan felt the weight of the future pressing down. He shared a look with Sarah, and in that fleeting moment, he knew that they would fight side by side. "Okay, team. Let us get to work," he started, his voice firm. "We're going to tackle this challenge head on. I want us all to prepare for the meeting with Paul and the board. Our focus has to be sharp. We need to show them what we're capable of." As the team started brainstorming, Ethan felt the adrenaline surge again more than a typical rush from work. This was about defending what mattered. This was about Sarah. The dialogue flowed around him, but his mind danced between thoughts of the impending board meeting and the subtle connection growing with Sarah. Together, they were an unstoppable force, but the pressure was mounting. Would they have the strength to overcome the skepticism before them? A chill ran down Ethan's spine as he considered the next week. The stakes were higher than ever. Their loyalty was about to be tested in ways he couldn't yet fathom. "Ethan?" Sarah's voice cut through his musings, pulling him back. "Are you with us?" He blinked, looking around the table. "Yeah. I'm here. We'll win this together." But as he spoke, dread curled in his gut, whispering questions he wasn't ready to answer. What if fighting for Sarah put everything he valued on the line? What would be left if they lost this battle? As the meeting continued, he felt that storm brewing again. Together or apart, the truth would soon rise, and when it did, would it bring them closer or tear them apart forever? The meeting buzzed with energy, voices rising and falling like a chorus of determination. Ideas ricocheted off the walls, and Ethan felt the tension gradually shift from anxious anticipation to a fierce resolve. Sarah had taken charge, effectively leading the discussion, her confidence blossoming before his eyes. It was empowering to witness, seeing her transform into the skilled leader he always believed she could be. "Let us break down the data," she said, her voice cutting through the chatter. "We need to show concrete results that help counter any doubts from Paul or the board." Ethan admired her tenacity. It ignited something deep inside him, pushing him to contribute further. "Absolutely. We have to highlight our achievements over the last quarter. That way, we can present a case that's hard to argue against." His eyes flicked to Sarah, silently supporting her, as she commanded the room with an awareness he hadn't seen before. As the hours rolled on, the team laid out the plans and drafted a presentation. Ethan caught glances from Sarah. Those moments where their eyes met felt charged with unspoken words. He wondered if she felt it too, a connection electrified by the shared mission, deepening every time their hands brushed against one another while passing notes or charts. Eventually, the meeting wrapped up, leaving them all exhausted yet invigorated. One by one, the team filtered out of the room until only Ethan and Sarah remained. "I can't believe we pulled that off," Sarah said, running her fingers through her hair, a playful sign of relief. "I really couldn't have done it without you." Ethan leaned against the wall, his heart racing at her praise. "You were incredible, Sarah. You owned that room." A smile spread across her face, and for a moment, the weight of the world lifted from both their shoulders. "Guess we make a good team," she quipped, and Ethan couldn't help but chuckle. "Definitely. There's no one else I'd rather partner with for this." But the lightness was quickly shadowed when Sarah's expression shifted. She looked off toward the window, her gaze far away. "What's on your mind?" Ethan asked gently. She inhaled deeply. I know how tricky things are going to get in the next few days. Paul can be ruthless, and I don't want to let the team down." "None of us want that," Ethan said, stepping closer. "But I believe in you. I'm sure the board will see your worth when we present our case." Sarah met his gaze, and there was something vulnerable in her eyes now, a flicker of fear. "What if it's not enough? What if my past? What if all of this complicates things?" He took a breath, not fully understanding what she meant but sensing the implications. "Your past? What are you talking about?" She hesitated, a storm brewing behind her eyes. "It's just, I've made choices. Personal choices that could change everything." Her words snagged on something inside him, a warning bell ringing. What do you mean? Before she could respond, the door swung open, and Jenna stepped back in. Hey guys, just wanted to check on you. Oh, I didn't realize you were still here. Ethan and Sarah exchanged a quick glance, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. Just wrapping things up, Ethan said quickly, desperate to regain the momentum of their conversation. As Jenna chatted about upcoming plans, Ethan's mind raced. He couldn't shake Sarah's words, the weight of them hung in the air. Once Jenna left again, silence pooled between them. Ethan knew they had to confront whatever was lurking in Sarah's shadow. Sarah, he said quietly, you can trust me. Whatever it is, we can face it together. She glanced back at the door, as if expecting someone else to walk through. Then she turned, eyes blazing with a mixture of fear and determination. Ethan, when I tell you what I've been hiding, it'll change everything. Are you ready for that? The world around them felt like it paused, gravity shifting as the weight of her revelation loomed on the horizon. Ethan's heart pounded in response, an unsteady mix of anticipation and dread swirling in his chest. I'm ready, just tell me. As she took a deep breath, he realized the seconds that followed would shape the very foundation of their connection. What was the truth hiding beneath the surface? Would it bring them closer or drive an irreparable wedge between them? Sarah took a step back, her eyes widening as if she were about to leap into the unknown. There's something from my past that I thought was buried, she began, her voice trembling. Something I've kept hidden all this time, and it's not just about me anymore. Ethan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The tension crackled like static electricity in the air between them, an urgent need for answers pressing against him. What do you mean? He urged, leaning in closer. You can tell me. She bit her lip, glancing down at her hands. Each delicate tremor sent a wave of anxiety crashing over him. A few years ago, I made a decision. One that led to consequences I wasn't prepared for. What kind of decision? He pressed, fear creeping in. He was desperate to understand, to make sense of this burgeoning weight. Taking another deep breath, Sarah straightened. I had a relationship with someone who, let's just say, didn't have the best intentions. I ended it, but not before things turned complicated. Ethan's heart sank. Complicated how? A shadow passed over her features, and she paused. I found out I was pregnant. I had the baby, but it hasn't been easy. I've kept it a secret from everyone, including the father. The revelation hung in the air, sharp and potent. A multitude of emotions danced across Ethan's mind: surprise, concern, and an overwhelming urge to protect her. You have a child? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Yes, she said, her voice cracking. A little girl. I've been raising her alone. And now I'm terrified of what it could mean for my job and for us. Ethan felt the ground shift beneath his feet. You don't think I would judge you for that, do you? He stepped forward, needing to close the distance, wanting her to see the sincerity in his eyes. I don't know, she said, her voice low. I don't want to drag you into my life. It's complicated and messy. Maybe, he agreed, but it's also your life. Your choices. They don't change how I feel about you, Sarah. There was a flicker of light in her eyes, hope mixing with the storm of emotions swirling around them. But what if this affects the team? What if they look at me differently? Ethan reached for her hand, his heart swelling as he breathed. We'll face that together. Whatever challenges come our way, we tackle them as a team. Just like we did in the meeting. Their palms pressed against each other, and for the first time, Sarah looked hopeful. You really mean that? Absolutely. You deserve support, and I want to be that for you. A teardrop slid down her cheek, but it carried a glimmer of relief as well. Thank you, Ethan. I didn't expect you to react this way. Yeah? Maybe because you didn't see how truly amazing you are at work and as a mother. And hey, when things settle, I'd love to meet your daughter, he added softly, attempting to lighten the mood. The corner of Sarah's mouth lifted, the tension momentarily forgotten. You're serious? Dead serious. Family and friends are what matter. As she nodded, a dawning realization washed over him. Sarah had shared something profoundly personal, and though uncertain, it had woven a strand of connection between them. But just as the moment felt almost perfect, Sarah's phone buzzed, jarring them from their bubble. She glanced at the screen, her expression hardening. "It's Paul," she said, dread creeping back in. Ethan's heart raced again. "You have to answer." It could relate to the presentation. "No," she shook her head. "We need to focus on this. I can't keep hiding, not anymore." Determination sparkled in her eyes, but that phone buzz felt like a catalyst, an undesired reminder that reality was pressing in. "Let us take it one step at a time, then," he encouraged. "You've got this. And I'm right here with you." But as she stared at the phone, Ethan wondered whether the battle lines were already being drawn. Would they be able to break through all the obstacles ahead, or would this change everything between them? "Okay," she whispered, her voice a mix of resolve and uncertainty. The room was thick with anticipation. Their fate hung in the balance along with Sarah's secret, and Ethan felt the air shift again as he braced himself for whatever would come next. How would Paul react? And would they truly be ready to face the fallout together? The silence in the room was deafening as Sarah's phone buzzed again, a harsh reality check slicing through the fragile moment they had just begun to build. She hesitated, eyes darting from the screen back to Ethan, her expression caught between fear and empowerment. "What if he wants to talk about work?" She pondered aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if he pushes me to go back to old ways?" Ethan reached out, resting his hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "You're in control now, Sarah. You're not that same person who made those choices. You've grown, and you're stronger than you realize." She took a deep breath, her hand tightening around the phone. "You don't understand. Paul isn't just a boss. He can be manipulative. There were times he made me feel like I couldn't escape." The emotion in her voice sent a pang through Ethan's chest. The reality of Sarah's struggles began to unfurl before him, and it lit a fire in him. He couldn't let her stand alone against that. "Then let us change that. Together, we can show him you're more than he thinks. You have that little girl to fight for now." For a moment, Sarah just stared at him, as if searching for the truth behind his words. A flicker of understanding passed between them, and then her phone buzzed yet again, drawing her attention back to the screen. She sighed, glancing back up to meet his gaze. "What if it all unravels? What if everything I built crashes down?" Ethan shook his head, his resolve hardening. "What if it doesn't? What if you tell Paul you're standing up for yourself? That you won't be pushed around anymore?" He watched as a wave of determination washed over her. Her posture shifted, straightening as the weight of her past began to feel lighter, even if only just a little. "You really believe that?" she asked, vulnerability mingling with hope. "I do," he affirmed. "But it's your decision. You have to want to fight for it. You want a better life for your daughter, right?" "Yes," she responded, her voice firm now. "I want to give her everything. I want her to see strength, not fear." With a nod, Ethan urged, "Then answer the phone. Face whatever comes your way head on, and I'll be right here with you." Swallowing hard, Sarah nodded, her fingers shaking as she finally pressed the answer button. Bringing the phone to her ear felt momentous, as if she were flipping a switch, readying herself to step into a new light. "Paul," she said, her voice steady, but Ethan could still see a flash of anxiety behind her eyes. "Sarah, glad I caught you. I need to talk about our last meeting." His voice resonated through the phone, smooth but commanding. The moment dragged on, and Ethan felt the tension in the air shift again, thickening. Paul's tone was all business, but he could hear the layers of intimidation wrapped tightly around it. Sarah nodded, her expression hardening, transitioning from uncertainty to resolve. "Let us talk about it," she said, her tone fierce. "But only if we're discussing mutual respect. Because if there's anything I've learned, it's that I deserve that." Ethan's heart raced. A surge of pride welled up inside him. This was the woman he admired, the fighter he had always believed she could be. "Wow, that's a bold stance," Paul responded, his voice now laced with surprise. Yeah, well, it's time for new beginnings, Sarah declared, her voice unwavering. Ethan felt a surge of hope wash over him. This could be the breakthrough they both needed. As Sarah continued the conversation, the intensity in the room began to shift. Each word she spoke felt like a building block, constructing her future on her own terms. Yet a nagging thought tugged at Ethan's mind. Would Paul's reaction be supportive, or would this ignite a battle that neither of them was truly prepared for? He watched her closely, aware that the way this conversation unfolded could mean everything for them both. Would this lead to liberation or further complicate the already tangled web of their lives? Sarah's laughter echoed through the receiver, and Ethan couldn't help but smile, picturing the day they could look back at this moment as a turning point. Could they really overcome all the obstacles standing between them now? As the call went on, Ethan felt a mixture of anticipation and dread swirling in his chest. He knew they had only scratched the surface of what lay ahead. How would Paul respond to Sarah's newfound strength? Would it help or hurt them as they continued to navigate this complex path together? The tension in the air was palpable as Sarah unraveled her thoughts, channeling her energy into each word directed at Paul. I know what's at stake here, and I refuse to let fear dictate my choices anymore. I'll decide my path. Ethan felt a rush of admiration. She wasn't just talking, she was fighting. Every syllable resonated with a raw clarity that seemed to cut through the murky past. It was as if she was shedding an old skin, leaving behind those dark, chained memories. Sarah, I appreciate your perspective, but let us remember who runs this show. Paul's voice was steady, but Ethan heard a hint of irritation flickering beneath. A threat hidden in a polite tone. Not anymore. I used to think I had to play along, that it was just business. But it's not. I have a daughter to think about. I won't allow you to manipulate me ever again. The fire behind her voice startled Ethan, igniting hope. He clenched his fists, holding back his own urge to leap into the conversation. This was Sarah's moment. Yet every ounce of him wanted to stand up and yell at Paul, to leap through the phone and defend her. Paul was silent for a beat too long. It felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. Ethan's stomach churned. If the conversation turned sour, they may not only lose this moment of empowerment, but it could also risk everything Sarah had built. Do you really think you can defy me, Sarah? Paul finally responded, his earlier composure now slipping. It sent ice through Ethan's veins. You're jeopardizing your career. Are you sure you want to do this? The slight tremor in Paul's voice revealed he wasn't as unshakable as he portrayed himself to be. A slight crack in his facade. Jeopardizing? No, I'm reclaiming it. Sarah's voice was firm, unwavering. Ethan held his breath, wishing he could physically embrace her strength. I am ready to take risks, Paul, but not the ones you expect anymore. The only risk I'm willing to take is turning my back on a toxic environment. Ethan's heart raced as he sensed the energies shift again. The words exchanged were not just about work anymore. This was an affirmation of self-worth, an act of rebellion. Let us be clear. I'm not asking for permission. I'm ready to move on if that is your response. I will not be pushed out of my own life. Sarah's tone was resolute. Ethan nearly cheered inside. This was the woman he had always known she could be. Paul shifted, his tone defensive. You'll regret this. You think there's someone out there who cares about you as much as I do? Caring doesn't come with control, Sarah replied sharply. You want to control my actions and my decisions. And that isn't care. That's a prison. Ethan watched her cheeks flush with righteous anger and fresh courage. Each word she spoke shattered the chains that had bound her. But something lingered in the air, a familiar anxiety. What if Paul retaliated? What if he turned malicious? You think you can just walk away? Paul's voice dropped an octave, low and threatening. I assure you that won't happen. Not that easily. The tension crackled like static electricity. Ethan's gut twisted. Fear coiled in him. He could feel the stakes rising with every exchange. Maybe it's time to find out, Sarah said boldly, her voice steady even as the threat loomed. Ethan felt the strong beat of hope echo in his chest, yet fear knotted his stomach tightly. It was evident there was no turning back now. Would this confrontation finally set Sarah free, or was it the kindling that would ignite an inferno of chaos they weren't ready to face? As the call drew to a close, he could see uncertainty creeping into her eyes despite the power of her words. One final question hung in the air, echoing louder than any exchange. What would become of Sarah after this battle, and would they still stand together at the end? Ethan's resolve tightened. He'd fight for her, no matter the outcome. But was it enough? The silence hung heavy in the air after Sarah ended the call. Ethan watched her stagger back, deflated yet electrified, as if she had just run a marathon without warning. The brightness in her eyes dimmed momentarily, doubt flickering like a candle flame in a draft. "Are you okay?" he asked, unable to hide his concern. He reached for her hand, but she pulled it away, rubbing her palms against her thighs. "Just give me a moment," she whispered, taking a deep breath. For a fleeting second, he saw her vulnerability, a crack in her armor. The thought of Paul's threats haunted the room, staining the air with palpable worry. "Sarah," he said softly, "you were amazing. You fought back." He wished he could erase the shadow of fear that loomed over them both, but even now it felt like it was tightening its grip around her spirit. Fighting feels good. But it's terrifying at the same time. She turned away, staring out the window. The evening sky was iridescent, merging deep blues and purples, yet outside seemed brighter than the turmoil inside. What if Paul does something? He has been controlling me for so long, I can't predict his next move. Ethan stepped closer, his heart racing. He win. "Look at you!" He motioned to her, the fierce energy still radiating off her. "You're stronger than he realizes. You have the power now." But she shook her head, her expression caught between hope and dread. "Do I? Or am I just fooling myself?" The vulnerability in her voice pierced through him. It felt like a knife, raw and sharp. He grasped for the right words, knowing that her doubt was just a whisper away from the reality of leaving everything behind. "Sometimes you need to believe in yourself before anyone else can. You just took the hardest step." His voice was steady, but doubt crept into his mind. "Would it be enough?" "I'm scared, Ethan. What if I lose everything? My job, my stability, my daughter's future?" The mention of her daughter held weight. They both knew the stakes involved. "I swear I'll help you through this. You're not alone in this fight." His promise spilled out, and he felt the truth of it wrap around them like a warm blanket. Just then, her phone buzzed violently against the table. They froze, eyes locked on the screen. The name lit up in sharp contrast to one that had turned their world upside down, Paul Davis. She reached for it hesitantly, then pulled her hand back as if stung. "What if it's something threatening?" "It's better to know," he urged, an edge of worry creeping in. "You can't live in the dark, Sarah. You fought for your freedom, now you have to own it." With a shaky breath, she picked up the phone and swiped the screen. The tension thickened again, a looming storm of uncertainty. Ethan waited, heart pounding, every second stretching long and tense. "Hey, Sarah." "It's me," Paul's voice churned through the speaker, smooth yet sinister. "You're making a mistake." A chill ran down Ethan's spine. He took a step closer, an instinctive need to protect Sarah swirling inside him. "I've been trying to reach you. There are repercussions for what you've done. I can make your life very difficult," Paul continued, each word measured and cold. "Are you threatening me?" Sarah's voice remained steady, but Ethan could hear the tremor beneath her resolve. "Yes, and I'm making it clear that leaving isn't as easy as you think." Ethan's fist clenched, the urge to confront Paul surging again. But now was Sarah's battle. He needed to trust her. "Do what you want, Paul," she replied, voice unwavering. "But I'm done living your game." He watched her determination forge armor around her vulnerability. She was fighting, not just for herself but for her daughter. Yet a surge of dread twisted in his gut. This wasn't just a verbal sparring match anymore. What would Paul do next? As the call ended, Sarah exhaled deeply, her hands trembling as she lowered her phone. "What do we do now?" Ethan met her gaze, resolve swelling in his chest. They had crossed a line, and there was no going back. In that moment, uncertainty hung in the air between them, threatening to engulf the fragile hope they had. The next steps loomed like a shadow ahead, dark and daunting, but there was no turning away now. They would face whatever came together. Just as that thought solidified, the sound of glass shattering from the other room sent adrenaline rushing through his veins. He turned to Sarah, eyes wide with fear. What was that? Maybe, she whispered, the fear creeping back into her equally wide eyes, maybe it's just the beginning. And with that chilling thought hanging in the air, the true test of their courage was about to unfold. Ethan could feel his heart pounding as he rushed toward the source of the noise, Sarah right behind him. The shards of glass glistened on the floor like deadly jewels. The sight sent a shiver down his spine. Was this a warning, a message from Paul? Stay close, he murmured, instinct kicking in. He held his breath, unsure of what they might find. As they entered the break room, their eyes landed on Paul, standing there with an unsettling smirk, a broken mug in his hand. The atmosphere crackled with tension. Thought I'd pay a little visit, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. Seems you've stirred the pot, Sarah. Anger flared in Ethan's chest. You can't just barge in here. Silence. Paul snapped, cutting Ethan off. This isn't your fight. You're not in charge anymore, Sarah. The board expects results, not excuses. I could make sure you're out on your ear by the end of the week. A shudder rippled through Sarah, her strength faltering for a moment. But then Ethan saw it, the fire igniting in her eyes. You think this will intimidate me? I've faced tougher battles, she shot back, voice steady. Ethan stood beside her, fierce resolve imbued in every fiber of his being. You've underestimated her for too long, Paul. She is stronger than you think, and we're not afraid of your threats. Paul scoffed, looking between them with disdain. Look at you, playing hero for a woman who is about to lose everything. Everyone knows you were her only lifeline in that meeting. How pathetic. Infuriated whispers swirled around them, echoes of doubt creeping back in. But Sarah took a deep breath, centering herself. No, it's you who doesn't understand. This isn't about just numbers anymore, it's about people, real lives. I'm not going back to the shadows because you can't stand a woman who refuses to be silenced. Ethan felt pride swelling inside him. She had found her voice at long last. Paul's smirk faltered, just for a heartbeat, but he quickly recovered. You might be brave, Sarah, but bravery doesn't pay the rent. The board is looking for results, and they'll back me up. You're a ballerina dancing on a tightrope with no safety net. Before Ethan could respond, Sarah stepped forward, her posture straight and fierce. That may be true, but you will not dictate my life any longer. I will prove my worth not only through numbers but through integrity. You can try to tear me down, but no one can take away my value as a mother and a leader. I stand with my choices. Feeling the heat of her words ripple through him, Ethan reached out, squeezing her hand. The support bolstered her resolve further, and the air between them crackled with unspoken energy. Very well, Sarah. You can have your moment. But I assure you, every move you make will be watching from my side. I plan to see you fail miserably, Paul replied, frustration tightening his features as he moved toward the exit. Mark my words. Ethan felt Sarah withdraw slightly, shadows of doubt creeping back. What if he is right? What if I do lose everything? He pulled her back, holding her gaze steady. You're not alone anymore. You have your daughter to fight for, and we have a team behind us. This is exactly how change happens, through confrontation and courage. The gravity of their situation settled in, but it didn't feel as heavy anymore. Something radical had ignited between them, a commitment to protect one another. Let us take back control, Sarah breathed, her strength returning. We will prepare for the board meeting next week. I'll show them my worth. I'll show Paul. Absolutely, Ethan affirmed, determination coursing through him. We'll build a presentation that speaks for itself, and rallies all those who believe in you. You're not just a number, Sarah, you're a force of nature. They shared an unspoken agreement, an understanding igniting the space around them. They had a battle ahead, but each stepping stone was bringing them closer, not just as allies, but as something deeper. The road wouldn't be smooth, it would require grit, tears, and endurance, but together, Ethan and Sarah were ready. As they walked back into the main office, the gravity shifted. They were no longer simply fighting to keep afloat. They were fighting for the future. "Let us start planning," Sarah said, determination etched across her face. "Together," he replied, a smile breaking through, and in that moment, amidst the chaos, they realized that transformation wasn't just about numbers or threats, but about building connections, trusting one another enough to stand firm in their truths. As the weeks passed, the board meeting approached, and with every conversation, every late night spent refining the presentation, hope and camaraderie surged among their colleagues. Finally, the day arrived. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. As they stood in front of the board, their proposal built on honesty, integrity, and mutual respect spoke volumes, but so did Ethan and Sarah's unwavering support for one another. When they finished, silence engulfed the room before the murmurs began. Eyes darted towards Paul. His defenses were down, and their unity was undeniable. "Change starts from the ground up," Sarah concluded, her heart flying as she felt the solid support of her teammates beside her. And as the board began discussing the merits of their proposal, how ethics and people mattered more than hard numbers, Ethan looked at Sarah, their previous uncertainties now replaced with mutual respect and shared courage. They had changed everything. In the heart of chaos, they found unity. In their shared struggles, hope blossomed. And their collective journey was only just beginning, the dawn of a new purpose shining bright before them. Now was the moment for triumph. If this story resonated with you, then you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next incredible tale. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let them know you love these journeys. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this amazing transformation. And for real, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this journey and find their strength. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to spread the word.